after being here and doing so much research, I felt like I was using so much of Potsdam that it was almost going to be a disservice if I didn't call it Potsdam. So, yeah, pros and cons of using a real town.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steinecker and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
What will they do if they encounter Bigfoot without weapons?
Okay, so you wanted to tell me the story about the band that you saw that you knew was going to become famous.
Yeah, and this comes up because Ethan Shanty's our producer here on Northwards, and he joins us before these interviews.
Yellow. You'll have to speak up. I'm wearing a towel. Today's obligatory Simpsons reference.
I thought you were wearing your uncle's hearing aid.
That too, but also a towel.
Anyway, Ethan Shanty, also are the host and producer of the Howl Story podcast.
This is true.
And its accompanying column, much the way I write a weekly column for Northwards.
This is true.
You write the Howl newsletter column. And in your most recent effort, which as we're talking has not yet gone out to the world, but will soon be out in the world, and by the time people are hearing this,
it will have gone out.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the way your hearing aid hears into the past. You wrote about there's a band that you've seen play several times in Potsdam.
Yes.
And I believe as we're having this conversation, they're about to play again, right?
They're not about to play again.
Or did they just play?
They just played like last month, and they're about to go into the studio. They're called Sophie's Body. And the first time I saw them, I just knew that I was like witnessing something special. And it's not that every live performance that I see isn't special, but when you've played as many shows as I have and attended as many concerts as I have all over the Northeast and beyond, it's not that they all blend together, but, not every band is amazing. Seeing live music is a blessing. And I'm very lucky that I get to do it all of the time. But it's like once a year that you see a band that really like blows you away and you go, wow, this is something special. And I saw this band, Sophie's Body, having never really listened to their music before. They reached out to me and I booked them because they seemed like nice people.
And they're from where?
And they're from Boston. And as soon as they played, I realized like I'm witnessing the first chapter of a band that's going to be like crazy famous. And I've booked them a couple of times since, and each time they've just gotten better and better, and Potsdam loves them. So I hope that they'll come back, but I think that pretty soon they're going to be playing on like much larger stages than I can offer. And you read that. You helped me edit the column this week, and you said that you also witnessed a band that you knew was going to blow up.
Yeah, so it's 2005.
Okay.
I mean, it's not right now 2005, but imagine that it's 2005.
In my hearing aid, it's 2005.
Exactly. It's 2005. I am working as the news director at KNAU, Arizona Public Radio, in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is in the northern half of the state, up in the mountains, not far from the Grand Canyon.
Not as hot there?
Not as hot. It's I will never live in a climate as nice as Flagstaff again. It's amazing. And I got a call from a producer at WBUR in Boston, and they wanted a recording of a concert that was coming up, and they had gotten permission to record it at the Flagstaff Folk Festival. Mm-hmm. And the band had formed ahead of a brief little thing at a gathering of African-American string players in North Carolina a few months before that, and this was going to be their first gig together. And they were called the Sankofa Strings.
Okay.
And they were made up of a couple of people from Arizona and somebody from, and I can't remember exactly where she was from, but one of them, the reason they played in Flagstaff was one of the players was a guy named Dom Flemons, and he had gone to Northern Arizona University, so he knew the place and somebody knew him, and so they booked them. And the banjo player, or one of them with this band, was Rhiannon Giddens.
Oh, I know where you're going. Okay, yeah.
And so I went and dutifully recorded this group playing together in what was essentially a conference conference room. It was not. It was like, I think it was in a hotel. Might have been like a ballroom or something, but a small one. Not like a main stage anything. And I was so blown away by them that I went up to them afterwards and said, "Hey, could I interview you?"
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Well, we have to drive back to Phoenix tonight, but we'll come back up tomorrow and do the interview." They didn't have another gig. They drove 2 hours back home to Phoenix, and then on a Sunday morning drove back to Flagstaff and came into the studio.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I interviewed them, and just talking to them, and in particular Rhiannon Giddens, you knew there was something about these guys that was really new but old, but they got something.
And they were and they were going to resonate with a lot of people.
They were going to resonate with a lot of people. Yeah. And they obviously didn't have an album out at that point because this was their first gig.
Yeah.
And they asked me for the recording, which they used as their demo reel.
Oh, no kidding. What? Really?
So there are bootleg copies of this out there. It was recorded in mono.
That's so cool.
Off the board. And their second album is the only album I have in my 35-year career I have ever blurbed. Like there's a blurb from me on the back cover of this album.
Whoa!
And then they ceased to be the Sankofa Strings, and they went on to be. I'm hoping you just
Carolina Chocolate Drops.
Carolina Chocolate Drops, exactly. And Rhiannon Giddens, I think she's won maybe a couple of Grammys at this point, and has gone on to solo work and worked with luminaries from throughout the folk and traditional music world, and just made a huge name for herself. She's been on Fresh Air probably.
Oh yeah, we play Rhiannon Giddens music all the time on NCPR.
Yeah, and it was the first radio interview she'd ever done, and but you just knew, like sitting there talking to them, that they weren't going to be doing like Sunday morning 9 a.m. interviews in Flagstaff for very long.
Right, yeah. So you have like a not insignificant footnote in the career of Rhiannon Giddens.
Yes.
That's so cool.
She never calls me, but...
Well, once she hears this, she will.
And interestingly, like a contemporary of Rhiannon Giddens, I feel like I'm name dropping now, but Allison Russell, you might have heard of her as well.
I'm not sure.
Look up Allison Russell.
I'll look up Allison
She's
Russell.
also won Grammys, and she comes from also a folk tradition. She grew up in Canada, and she's married to a guy named, I think it's JT Nero, and they've played music together. And sort of come up through the same world. She and Rhiannon Giddens, I think, have played together, and she lived for a while in the Milwaukee area, about 9 blocks from where I lived, because they were living with her in-laws. And I used to run into them at the coffee shop
That's
all
awesome.
the time. I think with both her and Rhiannon Giddens, yeah, my role, I mean, I've interviewed Allison Russell a couple of times, and it's really, really a footnote in their history. But at the same time, it is fun to, like, say the cliche that I really did know them when.
Yeah, that's so cool. The last thing you mentioned about running into them, I'm not going to name the musician because I don't want to blow up their spot, but pretty recently I realized that a musician who I've admired since college, I didn't realize that they were from Potsdam when I first started listening to them. And it's
Paul McCartney.
It's Paul McCartney, actually. But I found out several years after college that they were from Potsdam. And then I realized that they live in my neighborhood, and that means that they have definitely heard my band practicing. And it was a very strange moment, and I try not to geek out when I see them walking around the street.
Hey, speaking of Potsdam,
yes,
and
let's bring
things
it back.
that transpired in Potsdam, a few months ago we interviewed Tracey Lange, the author of What Happened to the McCrays, which was I don't know, a family drama. Is that how we
I think so.
Yeah, that happen to be set in Potsdam.
In a very authentic way. It's not like Tracey Lange just picked Potsdam out of a hat and then just sort of like read the Wikipedia page. She really got to know this community, and it shows through the prose. And she recently came back to Potsdam to give a talk as part of the Loco Festival, and
sort of a triumphant return.
She's been like adopted by the community
in a very positive way.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing, so the reason we're talking about this is because I had a chance to actually meet her in person and follow up the interview that we did. That we interviewed her right after the book came out, and at that point she was kind of, I don't know, concerned is the right word, but she was certainly curious to know how the book would be received in Potsdam, because Potsdam really is a character in this book. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that people really recognized the Potsdam that she portrayed. So this was the first time she had come back to the community since setting the book here, or there, relatively here. And so she got to go inside some places that she had only sort of imagined from seeing the outside, places like the Pine Street Arena where a lot of the hockey scenes in the book are set, and A.A. Kingston Middle School. Yeah. And it's funny. It's not. My kid went to A.A. Kingston Middle School.
Yeah. There's no world in which you would have imagined that place would have been part of the setting of a novel.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you got a chance to catch up with her again.
Yeah, I got a chance to catch up with her in person in Potsdam, actually in the podcast studio of the Potsdam Public Library.
Cool.
And Tracey Lange, it is great to see you in person.
Thank you so much for having me again. This is awesome.
So I was trying to remember from our original conversation, the books you had written before this.
Yes.
They were based on actual places, but they were kind of an amalgam, if you will. They were not actually set in real life cities, correct?
That's true. The first one, it was based loosely on a town in Westchester, but I had to change enough that I wasn't real comfortable going with the actual name. The second one was based in a real town,
okay.
Portchester, but it definitely didn't play the same role that the setting did in the third book. But yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's start there, because I imagine this is a lot more attention from a town after your book has long been out than you are used to.
Yes, for sure. By the way, it's been wonderful. I was just telling you that coming back here is such a treat. Everyone has been so welcoming and appreciative, but I love it. Yesterday I got to visit some of the sites, the landmarks from the book, and actually go inside now. Whereas when I came through before, I couldn't really go inside the middle school.
You couldn't really convince them to say, "Hey, I'm writing a book."
I know. I didn't even try. So I went inside the hockey rink, the arena. It's just been great. So. This has been such an amazing reception, and because the setting was such an important part of the story.
Yeah, well, and I wonder if you were a little concerned coming back about whether the real Potsdam would actually jibe with what you remembered and how you portrayed it in this book, because it really was a character almost in the book.
It really was. I was coming back this time, I felt pretty comfortable because so many people have reached out, local people or people that are from here, they may not live here now, to tell me that I thought I did a good job. But I was nervous publishing the book because if you are going to base it on especially a small town with so much heart and character, you want to make sure you get it as right as possible. There are a few things I had to tweak, for purposes of the story, but I was more nervous after publication about, okay, how are people going to feel? Because I have lived in a small town that would remind you of Potsdam on the West Coast. And I know that if someone wrote about it and got it wrong, there'd be all sorts of complaints and, so that I was more nervous then.
It was actually, so it was interesting in the wake of my first interview with you, talking with people who had read the book or were thinking about reading the book and getting their take on whether you got it right, because it seemed to, in my experience, break down along lines. I mean, the lived experience of people in a place like the North Country can be so different. And there were people I was surprised, actually, because I read the book and I thought, wow, having had a kid that went to Potsdam Middle
Sure.
School
Yeah.
or AA Kingston Middle School, and certainly being involved in youth sports here, and it felt very real. And yet there were people for whom I think their lived experience was different, and they were like, "This is not a part of the North Country I recognize." I wonder if you got any of those comments from people. Or the kinds of reactions you got, whether people were from Potsdam or not, whether you think about the people who might not have gotten it.
For sure. And I always know with any book, it's so subjective. And I expect there are definitely people out there who either felt like I got some things wrong or didn't quite capture their experience here. And that's all legitimate because it is so subjective. Typically, those people don't tend to reach out to you. Most of the messages I've gotten have been very kind and, they're very appreciative. And I remember my time there in school or whatever it was. But yeah, I'm sure it's just there are people that probably feel like I missed the mark in some ways. But again, we all just, whether it's a book or a town, we all experience everything so differently. So I feel badly if anyone feels like I didn't do Potsdam justice, but I get it.
Part of me just wanted to tell him, get over it. It's fiction, right? I mean,
That's true too. That's true too. Yeah.
If you had called this East Overshoe, they wouldn't have had any thought that this was
exactly.
Potsdam.
And that was the decision. Do you go? And it was really mine. My publisher lets me sort of make that call. But in the end, after being here and doing so much research, I felt like I was using so much of Potsdam that it was almost going to be a disservice if I didn't call it Potsdam. So yeah, pros and cons of using a real town.
I was wondering if your experience writing this book and kind of getting the reaction to it, and now you're back here, is likely to inform how you approach any of your next books.
I think so. One thing I learned a lot. With each book, you learn a lot. But with this one of the things that really struck me was how the character can be such a setting. My agent actually is always, that's one of the things she's always on me about, sense of place, sense of setting. So I really leaned into that with this book. And it just gave me so much it just added so many layers to the story. My next book, part of coming back east right now is a kind of a research into where I think my next book's going to take place. So I have learned how important that is and how much it can enrich the story.
Part of me was thinking as I read the book originally, and as I've been sort of follow you on social media,
Right.
and kind of read people's reactions to it, whether there is, we're living in this time when there is really a divide between rural America and more urban places, and it felt a little like to read this book is to, if you're reading it in some place like New York or Washington or Seattle or wherever, get some more insight into another part of the country and the way people are living every day. I guess it's unfair to ask you whether that was a hope that you had going in, but do you feel that as well?
I think so. That's what I really like to dive into. It's just, and I think when people do reach out and tell me what they connected with in the book, it's so often just what you're saying, kind of like the people I know down the street or the town I grew up in or spent some time in, or so that's always one of my goals, is to try to I think that's how we build empathy, by putting ourselves in other people's shoes. And I do virtual book clubs with people from all over the country. And I can tell you that a whole lot of people now are aware of Potsdam that weren't before, but that were interested and asked me about the history I learned and why Potsdam, even if they are in Seattle or wherever it might be.
Did they think that the toilet gardens are a metaphor?
Oh, that's the second question. Are the toilets real? And I'm like, absolutely. You got to look into it. Such a small town thing. That right there. I was like, I have to use this. So, but there again, you worried if it was going to upset some people, and you just kind of had to do the best you could and put it out there. So
So tell us about what your grand tour. I mean, this is not as much time as you spent in Potsdam when you were researching the book. But what was your grand tour like when you dropped into town? As we're having this conversation, you got here yesterday, I think.
Yeah. So far, it's been amazing. SUNY Potsdam kind of set this whole thing up and got in contact a while back. And so yesterday we visited some of the spots from the book, including the toilet garden. But it was a treat to actually go into the ice rink. I didn't get to do that when I was here last time, or go into the middle school where there are several scenes from the book take place. And I met with Jerry, the superintendent, took me in there yesterday, and I got to go in the cafeteria where the dance was. All these things came back to me from the book. So it was very cool to visit those places and actually picture those things happening. But
did those places feel kind of like what you imagined they would?
Yes, they did. And I did a lot of research. I know I was able to find pictures of the gym from the middle school online. I don't know if I found the cafeteria. I can't remember. So I did have lots of pictures and I did do lots of research, but to actually lay eyes on it and feel like, okay, that I wasn't too far off the mark. That felt really good. So it's been amazing. And then I got to sit in with a book club last night. And
what are the kinds of questions you get from people in Potsdam when you meet with a book club like that?
Honestly, it's often why Potsdam, why our town. And there's a lot that goes into that, but long story short, it just seemed like the perfect setting for this story. It didn't have to be Potsdam. There are other towns that we would all recognize as similar, but it had so much character and history, and it just fit really well. So that's the first question I usually get, and then it's usually it's just characters, whether it's Potsdam or other readers. But that's the first question. Why our town?
Why did you pick on us?
Yeah, I know, right? Some people might view it that way, yes.
I can't tell you how many people I knew from around the country who would send me, a review or they were in their library and they took a picture of it and said, "Did you know there's a book set in Potsdam?" Yeah,
I love that. And even if people maybe it felt like I could have done a better job, like just to have people talking about it. And again, having lived for many, many years in a similar town on the West Coast, it's Sandpoint, Idaho, if anyone's ever been there. I know what it would be like if someone wrote, and there'd be teams, she did okay. I don't know. Anytime it generates conversation, I think it's great. So
you were kind of at the tip of the iceberg. I did an interview before you with the author of the God of the Woods, which was set in the Southern Adirondacks.
Oh, yes.
And then there was your book, and then a couple months after your book, there's a book called Bad Juliet set in Saranac Lake
I didn't know that one.
At the turn of the 20th century. And there's a book coming out next month as we're having this conversation called North Country that's set in a fictionalized version of the area around Chazy Lake, which is about an hour from here along the Canadian border. But it's supposed to be in a small college town near the Canadian border, which could very easily be Potsdam as well.
Sure.
It's strange to feel in this area like we've been discovered by fiction writers. Like a while ago, it was the coast of Maine. Everybody was writing books in Maine, and now they've moved west.
That's
6
so
hours.
Interesting. Yes, I did read. That was Liz Moore.
Liz Moore,
yes,
exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic book. I love her.
Oh my gosh, it was a great book.
Yes.
There were a lot of people who. Same kind of phenomenon, people who thought that, hey, she got it right, and hey, I don't recognize this at all.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And she was writing about a whole different world, sort of, than mine. So it just goes to show you. But I don't know what it is. I can't say why people are discovering. But I know that for me, part of the draw of writing about New York is because I'm from the city, but I'm still from New York, and there's a comfort writing about it, and I enjoy writing about New York and New Yorkers.
We could hear a little bit of the New York drawl in your voice.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. You can't take it out of the girl, right? Or whatever. So
must have fit in well in Sandpoint, Idaho.
I did get the question once in a while, where are you from? Because it's not here. But also, there's so much history. here. It's just a different feel. I love the West Coast. I've been out there a long time, but that might be part of it, especially when I think about Liz Moore's books. Anyway, there's a lot of history to the school where it took place. So that might be one of the reasons.
Well, and actually, now that I think of it, there's another book. Rob Benvie wrote a book called The Damagers. He's a Canadian writer that was set in a fictitious, like, utopian cult in the Adirondacks, but based on some actual groups. So yeah, I'm like right off the top of my head, 5 books set in the North Country, which is
and all fairly recent.
All
that's
within the
interesting.
last year and a half.
I swear we didn't coordinate. I don't know what it is, but people do seem to find a place and then sort of run with it, I guess. Yeah.
One of the things that actually I remember when I read your book reminded me that the people that you portray and kind of the lives lived reminded me of the first time I read Richard Russo's Empire Falls, which takes place in Maine, but of course he grew up in the Hudson Valley, or he grew up in central New York anyway.
Okay.
And I remember talking to him years ago about like this
Such
sense
a good
of,
book, yeah.
Oh my God, what a great book.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and this sort of sense of elegant decline that, and you're just talking about the history that exists in this area. And, I think this isn't really a question, but it comes through in your book, the feeling that, the places these people inhabit, these are old houses. You can imagine the peeling paint or the uneven floors or whatever, just the scene set in your characters' houses.
Yes, yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. That's what you're going for. You want to put people in that spot, for sure. So it was easy to do with Potsdam after driving around. There's just so much history. You can tell by looking at the homes and the campuses and the toilets, all of it.
Did you make it into the waiting room of the hospital?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not get into the waiting room of the hospital.
No spoiler alert there. The book opens in the waiting room of the hospital. Are you somebody that outlines? I mean, do you have like storyboards or index cards or anything, or do you just start from the beginning and see where it leads you?
Pretty much. I don't outline. I never know the ending.
You never know the ending?
I never know the ending to my books when I start them. And I think part of that is I don't want to rule anything out. I don't want to write to an ending, although some people swear by doing that. I start with a real vague premise, and then I spend a long time just thinking about my characters and getting to know them. And then for this book, when I started writing the draft, I didn't even know why they got divorced, for instance. And so once you create these people and flesh them out, they kind of tell you the story to some degree, even if you don't want to really go in that direction necessarily.
Is that part of the fun, though, for you?
It is kind of. I guess that's sort of anytime I feel kind of magic in writing, quote unquote, that would be it. When I realize, oh, this is what happened here. Even if I don't really want that for them or I didn't plan on it, but it feels true to them. So sure, it can be painful at times, but that is sort of where it feels a little bit magical.
The painful part, that's always one of the things that I wonder about, the feeling that you get as you're writing, like you've breathed life into these people who you presumably care about, otherwise you wouldn't be writing about them, but you have to make bad things happen to them.
Definitely. I mean, without conflict,
right.
There's no real story. So it's not easy to do that, but you just, as long as, for me anyway, if I feel like I'm being true to them and their story, I can go with it. It's hard. This book in particular, I had to sit in some dark places for some heavy stuff. But as long as you feel like you're doing them justice, then you generally can be okay with it.
Has to be a pretty major compliment for a writer when The Village, where you set your story, they invite you as an honored guest.
Oh, there's nothing like it. And people have been expressed such gratitude, but I am the one who feels so grateful that people are that interested in the story and feel like I captured Potsdam to at least a certain degree, and they're having fun with it and talking about it. So this is such a treat for me, honestly.
Well, honorary Potsdam citizen Tracey Lange, thank you so much, and welcome back.
Yes, thank you so much, Mitch.
Tracey Lange is the author of What Happened to the McCrays, a novel that came out earlier this year. It's set in Potsdam. She returned to Potsdam not long ago to give a talk at SUNY Potsdam and to visit many of the settings that are featured in the novel, including, of course, the Toilet Gardens and McDuff's.
You know, I gotta hand it to Tracey for being that brave to set that story in a very real community, because I too try my hand at fiction from time to time, and even though I know that I'm writing about Potsdam, I don't have the guts to call it Potsdam. I always come up with some other stupid name.
I was trying to come up with just the right stupid name, but let's talk about some other names that are not stupid at all. The names of the people that produce this podcast.
Nice segue.
Thank you.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke, with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Bill Hanel is our digital director. Doyle Dean is our production manager, and Caitlin Kelly handles our social media. You can hear more conversations, subscribe to the show, and support the show at ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.